This is Sway.
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 In the morning.
In the morning.
In the morning.
Shake your body.
Wake your fuck ass up. That crust out you.
All right, 41 minutes into the hour. Mike Muse is here. Good morning, Mike Muse.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, and joining us, too, is a good friend. I consider him a good friend, Heather B., because anybody you meet at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you make a lifelong connection with, because those people there are obviously connected. They know somebody. They got some leverage or they got some money.
Where'd you guys meet?
The White House Correspondents' Dinner. Yeah, one of them.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one it was.
See, I was on the outside. He got the VIP tickets and went inside. I was on the outside.
Oh, this is true. You didn't go inside?
No, I don't have that kind of pull.
Oh, wow. Hogan, I didn't know. Welcome to the show, the one and only Hogan Gidley, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know.
Hogan,
Come on, man.
Sway always has access to everything.
Thank
He
you.
has like the
gosh.
golden pass.
Thank
man.
you.
All right. Well,
Must be nice.
Well, Hogan, you're a national Republican strategist. You worked with Huckabee for a while, right?
Yeah,
Are you still
15
working?
years.
15 years.
Worked for him 15 years.
Damn. What was the high point of that trek with him, would you say?
Obviously, his runs for president were a lot of fun, but when he was governor, we were able to do a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff. You know, being a Republican at that time in Arkansas, it was all Democrat, it was all Clinton folks.
Yeah.
And Huckabee was able to get 50% of the black vote in that state, which no Republican, black or white, has ever gotten 50% of the African American vote in a statewide election. And he did it, and
Especially
we did
in the South.
Do what?
Especially in the South.
Especially in the South, absolutely. But I mean, we did a lot of things as governor that you know, I mean, it's just every accomplishment was something, because it actually affects people. When you're a governor, you know, you're accountable to the people. You have to deal with the legislature. You can't go with these fools up in Washington. You go stand behind a podium and promise all this stuff and then never gets done. You have to do stuff as a governor, and so for me, I like to watch a guy who actually accomplish things, but then when you go out in the communities, you actually see the people that the policies affect. Yeah. And you get to see them come up and hug him and say, my kids didn't have health care and now they do because of you, and stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff that's meaningful, that makes you think folks in politics can make a difference.
Yeah, because
it's rare.
Yeah, it's rare. I was going to say it's rare. We don't see that part. We don't see the end result. We just see, especially in this presidential campaign, we're seeing a lot of mudslinging. We're seeing a lot of disarray, you know, the GOP, you know, the GOP establishment and Donald Trump conflict right now. What, in your opinion, what is the status of the relationship with Donald Trump and the GOP?
Well, it's not good with the establishment. It's good with the rank and file. You know, look, it's amazing to me. I've been watching this now for a while. Everyone thought Donald Trump wasn't going anywhere. But what Donald Trump started talking about was the working man. The working man is getting kicked in the teeth here, and that cuts across racial lines. It cuts across party lines, because, you know, everybody wants to have a good job that they can either take care of themselves or take care of their family, and those jobs aren't here anymore. And I think Donald Trump started off early on that, and the GOP, for whatever reason, we tend to be focused more on the folks in the boardroom as opposed to the folks on the factory floor. Yeah. For whatever reason. Maybe it's because of the money or whatever. And that's a bad problem in our party. And the governor's been trying to address that. Governor Huckabee's been trying to address that for years. Donald Trump's kind of touching that a little bit. And it's in disarray because, look, as a Republican, I say we were in the minority and we voted with Barack Obama 54% of the time. Now we're in the majority and we vote with him more. We vote with him 55% of the time. And I'm going
what do you
somewhere.
What do you mean by vote with him?
In the Congress. The Congress votes with him, or votes for his policies now more in the majority. When you thought Republicans thought, once we get over in the majority, we're going to be able to shake things up and make some changes we want. And it's been the exact opposite. And the reason that is, and Bernie Sanders is hitting on this too, which is why he's kind of catching fire in a lot of ways. Money controls politics. The same folks who fund the Republicans fund the Democrats. And so you wonder why nothing gets done and why nothing changes, because, forgive me for saying that, I guess I can say this on
You can say
serious.
whatever you want.
Washington's a strip club now. And the politicians do the dance for all the donors that shell out that money.
Damn, that's a good analogy.
They do.
Yo, that's a great analogy.
It's true. It's true. And they get up there with all this virtue, and then they see those dollars, and they start shaking it, and they'll shake it whoever's dropping the money to them. That's just a fact.
Man, we got Hogan Gidley right here, man. Mike Muse, it sounds shocking to hear Hogan say that Congress is voting in favor of President Barack Obama's policy at a rate of 55%. Is what you said?
It's more.
More. When it felt, it's just the outside appearance is that the Republicans have done everything in their power to not allow policy to go through under his reign.
Yeah.
Would you agree with Hogan?
Hogan is right on a lot of the issues. I would even advance the conversation even further and say part of the appeal to Donald Trump in terms of the country isn't doing enough, in terms of it's difficult to find jobs. There's also this notion of this narrative that for a lot of times of the Republican Party, a lot of working class whites have always voted against their interests with the Republican Party. So there is that narrative. There's also that narrative that the Republican Party has forgotten about the working class white man, right? And so that is kind of some of the sentiments that we're feeling right now, on top of when the Congress became the majority during the midterm election and flipped both the Senate and both the House of Republicans. There's this notion of repealing Obamacare, right? But the Republicans weren't able to do that, and the Republicans weren't able to do a lot of the things that they promised. And so there is a sentiment from the general public and general consensus that all of Washington has to change, right? Not only does the Democrat has to change, but the Republicans have to change too as well, because the Republicans haven't done what they said they're going to do. And so in this era of polite society that we live in, Donald Trump is actually saying it very specifically and unapologetically, is stating his case. He's stating how he feels about policies. You can agree or disagree with him, but people like the fact of what he's standing for. He goes out so far on the ledge, and his supporters say, yeah, but he's just doing that just to bring home a point. And when he gets there, meaning the Oval Office, he will create better strategies. He just wants to step back and assess the issues, right? So they don't even give him credit to some of the things that he says on the fringes. And so that's kind of where we are, the electorate right now, and that's why Donald Trump has been able to be who he is.
I'm confused, just as your average citizen who really only talk about politics when we talk about it here on this air at this point now. This isn't true. I sit and talk about this shit all day. But I was looking at the CBS poll about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. They viewed more unfavorably than any front runner for either party since 1984.
Unfavorably. Right. That's right.
But they're ahead, right now in this presidential run. Wow, I don't understand.
The conventional wisdom is you don't vote for somebody you don't like. But the most likable person in the race, polls showed, was Mike Huckabee. He didn't really get too far. Jeb Bush was likable. All those
Mike Huckabee, where'd that come from?
I'm saying all those folks were likable, right? But now we got Hillary Clinton, who's unlikable, polls show, and Donald Trump, who is also unlikable. And I think
he's more unlikable than Hillary.
Correct, no question.
According to these polls,
no question. Right. And so people are so angry, and I think part of the reason is, besides the fact I believe most people feel as though they've been left behind by this government. But they've been largely ignored. I think the RNC and the DNC, quite frankly, has either chose to ignore or refused to acknowledge the real suffering going on out across America, and they've refused to acknowledge how angry people are. And they're angry at their politicians because those politicians get in office, as we just talked about, and they don't do anything. And for the last 10 years, I'd even say in the Bush administration, remember, the reason we even have the Tea Party is because of George W. Bush spent too much by Republican estimation. So the last 10 years, what we've heard from every person running for Congress and every person running for Senate is basically, if the Republican and Democrats, if the other side wins, America's going to hell, and we're going to be the worst nation ever, and the other person's the devil. And so that rancor and anger has been building, I think, for the better part of a decade. The fear has absolutely been building. Yep. Absolutely. And here's the thing. That talk is cheap, right? Yep. It gets you money. It gets you money into your PAC. It gets you on every Fox News channel and MSNBC. All that rancorous language and rhetoric gets you on those shows. It's cheap, but it comes at a huge expense, and we're seeing that expense now. And the expense is people are furious.
I think the whole notion of fear and anger, I think we have to be careful how we describe it as policy. I believe it's depending upon who you're speaking with and your perspective. Some would say that the issues that are happening in America and the policies that have been set forth have actually been great for America. And some people will say that policies have been progressive and has moved the needle forward on economics, has brought us out of the recession, out of economic despair, has really changed the narrative on how we fight terrorism, how we change our military strategy. I think the frustration equally on both sides, Democrat and Republican, comes more tactically. I think the American public is frustrated by the divisiveness that's occurred beginning in 2008. So when you enter into a new administration in 2008, in the morning of this man's inauguration, you have one political party, the Republican Party, saying our job is to stop him at all costs and to be obstructionist. So once you dig your heels into the dirt, into the sand, and you align yourself in that position, it then becomes more difficult to build coalitions. It becomes more difficult to reconcile. It becomes more difficult to come to the middle. And so that's where the anger is on both sides, is a frustration of our tactical notion of our politics, more so than our policy. policies.
We're going to come back and keep talking about this. Hogan Gidley is here with us. Mike Muse is here with us as well. 888-742-3345. Hogan said Washington is like going to a strip club.
Yeah.
So here's T-Pain. I'm in love with a stripper.
And Sway in the morning.
All right, we got Hogan Gidley, who's joined us, National Republican strategist, also the National Senior Communication Advisor to Mike Huckabee for president. Of course, Mike Muse, if we list all his accolades, the show will be over in about 3 hours, so I don't have enough time. We're talking about this presidential campaign. Hey, listen, just as an average citizen, I'm confused because, you know, on one hand, I'll hear that our unemployment rate is at a record low, right, and has come down immensely since President Obama took office 8 years ago. On the other hand, I hear that our country is in disarray, and that when you listen to these debates, it's like nothing's going right in this country. We're going to appeal Obamacare, but how many 18, 20-something million Americans
are now insured.
Yeah. It's confusing to your average, in my opinion, citizen who's not following politics for a career. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start with you, Hogan. What is the state of the country, in your opinion, when the unemployment rate is that low and some of the things, the automotive industry has been resuscitated? And what is your opinion?
Well, and again, my argument is I don't think it's that low. And I think for two reasons. One is that number doesn't factor in the underemployed, people who are making less money than they were before. Mm-hmm. People who have just stopped looking for work. I mean, some people estimate the numbers are around 10, 12, 15, even 15% right now. People are out there hurting, and I hear the president talk consistently how much better the economy's gotten. And quite frankly, a lot of folks from D.C. say the economy's gotten better. But you go to the layaway counter at Walmart at Christmas, it's not any better. People are out there going, that economy's not affecting me. Mm-hmm. The folks on Wall Street are doing so much better than they were even before George W. Bush. They grew under Bush. They're growing under Obama. The disparity between the haves and have-nots have grown under the tail end, or I guess a majority of George W. Bush's presidency, but also Barack Obama. And it just seems as though there's a complete disconnect from the ruling class as opposed to middle and low income families out there going, you say you're doing better, people are making more money, we're not. We met so many people out on the campaign trail who had one job, had a pension, could take care of their families, put clothes on the kids' backs, food in their mouths, and now they have no job. They're working 3 part-time jobs, and they don't have any benefits. They can't afford to make ends meet, and that's a common tale out there. So I think politicians try to paint a picture as though things are a lot better than they are, because if it's not good, then it's their fault. So they try to paint it like it's better, but the reality is a lot of Americans are hurting out there.
Would you agree?
I disagree. In terms of, I hear this narrative a lot in terms of the Republican Party when Obama took office. There was always this new litmus test, and there was always this new measurable of what considered to be a great economy and turnaround. In particular, it came down with unemployment. Once the unemployment number hovered around 10%, the Republicans said, well, if it doesn't get to 7%, he's a failure. But then they got to 7%, and they said, well, if it doesn't get to 5%, he's a failure. They got to 5%, but then once they start getting lower, then we start using different measurables. Well, what about those who aren't looking for jobs, and what about those who just stopped? And then we started moving the needle. We never heard that narrative prior to this administration in terms of how we measured it. Now, one can just suspend partisanship, and let's just talk about practicality and common sense. It's not like when Obama took office that all of a sudden unemployment hit, right? And it wasn't like when Obama took office, all of a sudden people started suffering and lost their jobs. There was this systematic process and mechanisms in place that got us to that moment. And so we have to characterize it from the Bush administration and from the Obama administration and how did we begin, how did we start, how did we get into the situation, and then how far have we come from that? And when you look at it from a common sense perspective, then you can see that we actually are better off, right? And then you can actually see what caused us so much strife to begin with in the beginning. That doesn't really get into the narrative because then we get into partisanship of it, right? But nothing doesn't start when he took office.
And I didn't make that point. Remember, I said even back to the Bush era, so I wasn't pointing it all on Barack Obama's step.
I just don't know anybody who is not looking for work. Like, so how do we gather that information? Like, all my friends, if they can't find work, they're going to find money somehow, some way, but they're all looking for work.
Yeah.
Like
right. And the system. Again, I'm going to give you another example from the campaign trail. We met an African American woman. She was working at Hampton Inn or something like that. One of the hotels we stayed at, an inexpensive hotel. Precious woman, recognized the governor, sat down with the governor. This is one of the problems. The structure is set up to make you fail in this way. So this woman had Section 8 housing, WIC, all the government assistance, right? And she said, now, if I go out and get another job, I make $1 more than that arbitrary threshold, I lose all my benefits. My kid, who now I can take care of, I've got some government assistance, we live a decent life, I make $1 more, all that goes away. Why in the world do you set up a system for someone to be successful and succeed? As soon as they do, they lose all their assistance. So it takes them down to the poverty level. It makes no sense to make that woman be trapped in a hole. And if you're down in the hole, I hear some Republicans say, yeah, but she just has government assistance. That's a crock. If you're stuck in the hole, you're going to try to look around and go, I'm going to make the hole as nice as I can make it. And if the government's going to help, then the government's going to help. What we've done, though, is set up a system that if she wants to be entrepreneurial, if she wants to go out and try to make more money, the more dollars she makes, all the assistance goes away. It should be graduated. You should work your way out of that hole to provide incentive to do well, as opposed to stripping her of all of her benefits and making her and her son go into the poverty level just because she tries to make more money. It's absolutely ludicrous.
I think we have to be responsible in media and how we characterize welfare. Sometimes in welfare, the first thing that comes up is African-American woman. And I think we have to be mindful of that African-Americans aren't the only ones on welfare. And then even in terms of the majority are actually white women who are actually on welfare. So that's one point. The second point in regards to that, too, as well, is that the reason why a lot of people are struggling trying to find jobs is that a lot of these corporations aren't actually hiring. And the interesting thing about it is they actually have the money. They've actually done well. Yeah. Their returns, their profits have been at record highs, but they're holding on to it, and so that their margins look well, right? And so they are afraid to start hiring and start spending some of that money on human resources and human capital. So what we have to start doing is encouraging the corporate structure of American system to start hiring more, right? Okay. They have the money, they have the resources, but it's almost like, look, we've seen what happened to us. We didn't do too well. Now we're doing better. Let's just hold on to it. Let's just save it, right? For a rainy day, right? Instead of just releasing it, right? So that's what we really don't talk about, too, is that narrative of that.
Well, you have callers on the line. Hogan Gidley has joined us. Mike Muse is here. We got Roger on the line. Roger, good morning. How you doing?
Hi, Roger. Good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing? Great conversation. Also, your guest there talking about welfare, but he won't touch on job discrimination in the African American community. He won't touch on the fact that, and what you did, Sway, the fact that Obama has really pulled the country back up out of the doldrums that it was in, and then they want to go and hire another Republican because, like we said, there's a disconnect. The disconnect is with the conservatives that seem to have already forgotten what George Bush put us in. They don't want to go back to Cruz or Donald Trump, a billionaire who doesn't care about any poor people, black or white. And so, it's a great conversation you guys are having.
Thank you, Roger. I'm gonna let Hogan respond to that.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, I wasn't because I didn't agree with job discrimination. I wasn't addressing it. I think that does occur out there. But look, I mean, Donald Trump. It's so interesting. I mean, he was touching on so many issues. Absolutely, George W. Bush was part of the issue, no question. In fact, you'll remember Donald Trump went to South Carolina, where George W. Bush polls in the 80th percentile of popularity and said the Iraq war was wrong. He even intimated that George W. Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction of the people, and he still won every single county in the state, less two, and two of those counties went to Rubio. Ted Cruz didn't win a single county in South Carolina, and everyone thought that state was tailor-made to him, and it's my home state. So I'm saying our Republican frontrunner has no problems taking on George W. Bush and saying, well, he was wrong, especially not just with the war, but economically, too. I mean, look, here you have a billionaire who took, $1 million inheritance and turned it into billions. That's a difficult thing to do. I mean, ask any I don't know what the statistic is, but look at anybody who's won the lottery. Most of those people are flat out broke now. So just because you get money doesn't mean you're going to make money. So he's successful. I think he's not afraid to pull the punch or to throw a punch at George W.
You want to comment on that at all, Mike? No. Hey, listen, Hogan, you give me $1 million, I bet y'all make $1 billion. Depends on who you ask, right? Hogan, I want to thank you for coming by this morning.
Sure, man. Thank you, Hogan.
This is great,
Absolutely.
man.
This is great.
You got to come back.
I'd love to. Anytime.
Where do you live?
I live in South Carolina.
Oh, so you're not here that often?
No, I've been here every week for the past 4, just doing TV for other networks.
Okay, cool. Because it's interesting to hear these perspectives.
No, it is.
Right?
Great perspective, too.
Mike Muse, just real quick, I think nobody was surprised about the outcome of last night, right? Primaries. We all figured that Trump and Hillary would do as well as they did, right?
Yeah, no surprises there.
Yeah.
Trump's on his way. He can't be stopped right now. In terms of, he can't be caught in terms of delegate count. The only thing we have to see is whether or not it becomes a contested convention. Hillary is on her way to securing the nomination. But what's interesting to watch is what's going to happen with Bernie. Bernie's making a strong play in California right now. He's really holding tight to Wisconsin. If he can win Wisconsin coming up in April, and if he can gain some steam and gain momentum and win the rest of them, then the narrative begins to change a little bit, and then we begin to see will he be able to pull super delegates away from Hillary at the convention.
Hogan, who you think is stronger against Trump, Bernie or Clinton? Sanders or Clinton?
I don't know. It seems like Bernie does better nationally against him. Bernie's got plenty of money, so he can last as long as he wants to last. It's good for Hillary, I think, to make her a better candidate, to have a foil to fight against. He's going to continue to – he's more of an issue candidate at this point. I mean, he'd have to win every single delegate from here on out, and it would still be behind. I mean, she won 1 state. He won, I think, 2 last night, right?
Yeah, he won 2, yeah.
He won 2 last night. She won 1, but she still got more delegates because the state she won has more delegates.
Bigger,
again, it's one of those things where Trump and Cruz, the same thing with Hillary and Bernie in that – look, in the basketball tournament, if you're up by 20 points in the last 3 minutes, I'm happy to trade baskets. You know, we can just win a state, lose a state, win a state, lose a state, and you'll still end up with more delegates. I mean, I think that's where it is. Look, the map is now on Bernie's side. The math is on Hillary's side. She's got more delegates. She's going to continue to rack up delegates. He'll win a lot of states coming up, and this is what he's been saying. I'm going to start. This is where I start to pick up steam right here. The question is it enough to get him over it? And I don't think so.
In the national election, who you think is stronger against Trump? Will it be Clinton or Sanders? Mike Muse.
Clinton.
Really?
Yeah. Clinton's stronger in terms of, tactically, in terms of policy-wise. And what's interesting right now is the narrative has changed actually away from Bernie. Bernie was actually really strong on economics and job and Wall Street. But now with the Brussels attacks that happen right now we're talking terrorists. That falls right into foreign policy. That falls right into Clinton's strength as being a former Secretary of State. So that narrative is going to be consistent at least for about another month. The news cycle will be about Brussels.
But you'll notice it's not a high – terrorism and national security is not a high-ranking polling topic amongst Democrats. It is amongst Republicans. So Hillary and Bernie aren't really talking terrorism and national security on the trail. Now, they are today because of Brussels, and wisely so. But it still doesn't rank in the top 5, top 7 of Democrats. Or in Republicans, it's the top 2 or 3 in every poll. And so this type of stuff, a terrorist attack helps Trump immediately. I do think it helps Hillary as well, but it's still not a high issue amongst Democrats.
Okay. Man, Hogan Gidley, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, listen, how can people reach you directly? Citizens, reach out to him. Ask him questions, whatever you want to know. Get his perspective on things. What's your social media?
You can hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. It's the same handle, and it's at J Hogan Gidley. John's my first name, so I put the J in there.
Hogan,
so
J Hogan Gidley. Hogan Heroes, Hogan.
See, I want to say Hulk Hogan. Why does that never stick?
Well,
Hogan's hero.
He got $135 million. You got that?
No.
Okay, Hogan hero. All right, and Gidley is Gidley.
That's right.
Yeah, hit him up. All right, and Mike Muse, what's the question? We want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, let's keep the question going. Let's do something different. Sway. Let's have the citizens ask us a one-word answer. Do you think the anger in America is over policy or is it over tactics, meaning the divisiveness of our Congress?
So policy, is the anger in America over policy or is over tactics?
Yep.
One-word answer. Hit up Mike Muse directly.
On all my social media platforms, I am Mike Muse. I am Mike Muse, M-U-S-N-S-A-M-E, on Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hogan.
Great meeting you, man.
See, I'm already getting followers. See the power you have nationally. Look at this.
There it is,
Look at
man.
the followers loading up.
Give it out. Give it out again. Go Hogan.
At J Hogan Gidley. At J Hogan Gidley.
Get at him, man. And thank you for coming by. You got to come by again, man.
I'd love to. Thank y'all so much.
Did y'all get the invite to the April 30th, the White House Correspondence?
See, that's you.
That's
big time.
You didn't get that yet? Mike, you didn't get that?
All right, there you go. There you go. Here we go.
Big time.
Yeah, always Hogan.
Said nothing.
It's Sway in the morning, only
On Shade 45.